Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Thursday, 3rd April 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. United States. Donald Trump announced sweeping tariffs, including a 10% universal tariff on imported goods and additional reciprocal tariffs on countries accused of cheating America, claiming these would bring about a golden age. This plan was unveiled in a presentation likened to a game show, complete with charts listing reciprocal tariffs on various countries. These tariffs are widening the chasm between the U.S. and its allies, and experts say they are likely to transform global trade relations. Financial markets tumbled after Trump's tariff announcement. Republican senators joined Democrats in passing a resolution to block Donald Trump's tariffs on Canada, a rare rebuke of the president's trade policy, in a 51-48 vote. Democratic-backed Susan Crawford won a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat, solidifying a liberal majority. Republicans won Florida special elections in Trump strongholds by narrower margins than in 2024. A judge dismissed a corruption case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Neil Young, a dual U.S.-Canadian citizen, expressed concern about being barred from the U.S. after his European tour due to his outspoken criticism of Donald Trump, citing instances of individuals being detained and deported for criticizing the Trump administration. Secretary of State Marco Rubio ordered U.S. diplomats to scrutinize student visa applicants' social media. The U.S. State Department states that all visa applicants are continuously vetted regarding reports of visa revocations. The Trump administration halted dozens of research grants at Princeton University. A Trump task force will review Harvard's funding after Columbia bowed to federal demands regarding campus anti-Semitism. Free speech is under threat on its campuses amid pro-Palestinian protests, with Columbia University being targeted by the Trump administration for its handling of anti-Semitism. The Trump administration deported 17 alleged gang members from Guantanamo Bay to a prison in El Salvador. What? Secretary of State Marco Rubio asserted the group included murderers and rapists from the Tren de Aragua and S-13 gangs, which the administration has labeled foreign terrorists. André Jose Hernandez Romero, a makeup artist, was deported from the U.S. to an El Salvador prison because authorities claimed his crown tattoos indicated gang membership. The tattoos memorialized the Three Kings Day celebrations in his Venezuelan hometown and his Catholic roots. The Trump admin is not working to return a Maryland man sent to El Salvador by error, according to his lawyer. Us immigration judges are being fired by the Trump administration, posing grave risks to immigrants and the justice system. But advocates remain committed to helping immigrants in defiance of President Donald Trump. A U.S. judge ordered the Trump administration to restore legal aid to unaccompanied migrant children. Dr. Joanne Liu, former head of Doctors Without Borders, said NIU cancelled her presentation on humanitarian crises because slides discussing cuts at USAID could be viewed as anti-governmental. She was scheduled to speak about Gaza and federal cuts. Cuts to USAID could impact Trump administration efforts to curb migration. Trump policies have led to a wave of reverse migration as individuals return to their countries of origin. Latin American migrants turned away at the U.S. border are going home via Panama. Democratic-led states are suing to block Donald Trump from an $11 billion health funding cut. Justices are divided over Medicaid, right to choose Planned Parenthood clinics. Elizabeth Warren launched a campaign to investigate the Department of Education closure. A fourth U.S. soldier was found dead in Lithuania following a training mission. The Pentagon's brain trust that advised on Soviet and Chinese strategy may be gutted. The Western Hemisphere is turning away from the U.S. and toward China due to Trump's hardball diplomacy. U.S. officials object to the European push to buy weapons locally. The U.S. has accused China of putting the region's security at risk after it launched a second day of military drills targeting Taiwan. These included a rehearsal blockade and attack. The White House says India imposes uniquely burdensome certification requirements. The U.S. approved a $558 billion fighter jet sale to the Philippines. The U.S. is adding a second aircraft carrier in West Asia, amid conflict with Yemen's Houthi rebels and Iran. Rights groups say a U.S. bombing campaign on Yemen has killed civilians and caused destruction, worsening the humanitarian situation. This follows aid cuts from Donald Trump. Suspected U.S. airstrikes in Yemen killed at least 6 people, according to Houthi rebels. U.S. airstrikes pounded Yemen overnight, reportedly killing at least 3 Houthi rebels. Politico reported that Donald Trump told his cabinet that Elon Musk will leave his role soon. Donald Trump privately indicated Elon Musk would step back from his role as his term ends. Elon Musk still plans a major role in midterm elections despite loss in Wisconsin, raising questions about his influence. Cory Booker condemned Trump's policies in the longest Senate speech on record. Democratic U.S. Senator Cory Booker criticized Donald Trump and Elon Musk's decision to slash federal funding during a record-breaking speech. Senator Cory Booker smashed the record with a 25-hour anti-Trump speech. Prosecutors were directed to seek the death penalty against United Healthcare killing suspect Luigi Mangione. A U.S. court rejected Khalistani separatist Pannon's claim that a complaint was served on NSA Doval during a Washington visit. The Supreme Court unanimously upheld the FDA's block of flavored vapes. Us soybean farmers are facing uncertainty amidst Donald Trump's trade policies, spark fears of market volatility and lost exports. The Social Security Administration's acting commissioner is facing calls to resign over a decision to cut main contracts. A GOP senator defended telling a man who said he was fired from HHS he deserved it. Brea Pedersen said it was a difficult decision to bring her infant son to the House floor. The fate of the TikTok sale and the video app's U.S. future comes down to the wire. Donald Trump is weighing a TikTok proposal ahead of a potential ban. Education. Down. Democrats presser after a closed-door meeting. U.S. tariffs take aim everywhere, including uninhabited islands. Trump launched tariffs saying global trade has looted, pillaged, raped, plundered the U.S. economy. Evidence suggests that U.S. auto plant growth is due to reallocations rather than new constructions, countering Trump's claims. China. Turning to China, its foreign minister says Russian and U.S. steps to normalize ties bring optimism amid tensions in Ukraine. The U.S. has accused China of putting the region's security at risk after it launched a second day of military drills targeting Taiwan. These included a rehearsal blockade and attack. The Western Hemisphere is turning away from the U.S. and toward China due to Trump's hardball diplomacy. Yemen. Focusing on Yemen, rights groups say a U.S. bombing campaign there has killed civilians and caused destruction, worsening the humanitarian situation. Suspected U.S. airstrikes in Yemen killed at least 6 people, according to Houthi rebels. The U.S. is adding a second aircraft carrier in West Asia amid conflict with Yemen's Houthi rebels and Iran. Myanmar is reeling from a devastating 7.7 magnitude earthquake that has caused widespread destruction in Naypyidaw, Mandalay, and other regions. The earthquake damaged ancient sites, hospitals, and homes. Aftershocks continue to plague the area. The official death toll has risen above 3,000, diminishing hopes for finding more survivors. The nation has declared a week of mourning. Tragically, over 700 Muslims perished as the earthquake struck during Friday prayers. Despite the devastation, a 26-year-old man and a 63-year-old woman were rescued alive from rubble in Naypyidaw, 5 days after the quake. Compounding the disaster, survivors are struggling with shortages of clean water, food, medicine, and shelter due to the ongoing civil war. The situation is dire, with reports describing desperate conditions at a hospital near the epicenter. Rescue operations are hindered by damaged roads, collapsed bridges, and unstable communications. AI and satellite imagery, including ISRO's Cartosat-3 images, are assisting rescue workers in assessing the damage. The military junta has announced a temporary truce to facilitate relief efforts, though doubts persist regarding their ability to effectively distribute aid. Some observe that the deadly earthquake is bringing diplomatic benefits to the junta chief. Social media is rife with false content about the earthquake, including AI-generated videos and misleading images. The World Health Organization warns that the earthquake has overwhelmed Myanmar's healthcare system. Aid is being provided by China, Russia, India, and the UK. The United States' response to the disaster in Myanmar has been slow, attributed to cuts in humanitarian aid. Some senators have criticized the Trump administration's response. China and Russia have dispatched rescue and relief teams. The U.S. absence has allowed China to play a larger role in providing earthquake relief to Myanmar. Beyond Myanmar, the earthquake's impact extended into Thailand, where a skyscraper collapsed in Bangkok. Families are anxiously awaiting news at the site of the collapsed building in Bangkok. One woman is searching for her brother, an electrician who was working on the site. Thailand has initiated an investigation into the building collapse. Japan is currently navigating a complex interplay of domestic challenges and international pressures. The country's declining population is raising concerns about its national security, particularly its impact on military readiness. Within schools, an unexpectedly high number of incoming first-grade students, around 25%, are struggling to use traditional squat toilets. Furthermore, financial anxieties are prevalent among the college student population, with half reporting they are frequently limiting purchases due to concerns about the cost of living. In Tokyo's Kabukicho district, NPO volunteers are working to support vulnerable young individuals escaping abuse, bullying, and poverty, aiming to prevent their exploitation. A former sumo wrestler is now pursuing a career in singing, with his music appealing to individuals embarking on new life journeys. The nation is also proactively updating its nuclear disaster response protocols, clarifying the duration of shelter-in-place orders and the conditions for their termination. NJK's new miniseries, After the Quake, explores the long-term societal impacts of past major disasters over the last 30 years. Internationally, Japan is preparing a bold and speedy response to surprise 24% tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, a move that has negatively impacted the market. This announcement triggered a market downturn, with the Topix index dropping by 4% and the Nikkei falling by 4.1%, compounded by the strengthening yen. The Japanese government is also considering stricter parliamentary oversight of active cyber defense measures, with a revised bill potentially being introduced soon. NBC and Fujitsu are collaborating on AI-driven forecasting services, a rare partnership where a Japanese bank shares sensitive customer data with another company. Beyond its major cities, Japan offers diverse travel destinations, including Yokohama and Koyasan. The Toba Aquarium in my prefecture celebrated the arrival of 5 new staff members with a unique underwater ceremony. YaWest introduced its new limited express Yakumo rolling stock in April 2024, aiming to improve the travel experience. Teruki Hara, originally from Tokyo, is now a fisherman in Fukushima, having discovered his passion for the profession in his childhood. The Cambodian diaspora in Japan is alleging transnational repression, including alleged family harassment, in Cambodia for their participation in rallies in Japan, accusations that the Cambodian embassy denies. A third-generation Japanese Brazilian is currently tracing her family history in Okinawa shining a light on Okinawa Prefecture's history of emigration. Meanwhile, in the United States, Shohei Ohtani hit a walk-off home run as the Dodgers became the first defending champion to start a season with an 8-0 record. Seiya Suzuki contributed 2 home runs to the Chicago Cubs' victory over the A's, hitting 3 of Chicago's total home runs in the series. Phil Mickelson described his return to Augusta National as almost a religious experience. 10% global tariff was unveiled by Trump, including a 24% tariff on Japanese goods. An American man was arrested in Kobe after mistakenly bringing a handgun and ammunition into Japan. Goro Miyazaki suggested that AI might eventually impact anime production, but emphasized that his father, Hayao Miyazaki, is irreplaceable. Finally, a Japanese bento chain issued an apology for an April Fool's Day joke that stated it would stop selling rice. Israel has escalated its military operations in Gaza, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declaring the intention to seize territory and divide up the Gaza Strip by establishing a new security corridor. This would effectively dissect the region to increase pressure on Hamas for hostage releases. The Israeli military has significantly expanded its ground assault, targeting militants and infrastructure, while ordering evacuations, including most of Rafah, to Mawazi. The conflict has resulted in at least 50,399 Palestinian deaths and 114,583 injuries since October 7, 2023. Reports indicate that some Palestinian paramedics killed by Israeli forces allegedly had their hands or legs tied, with gunshot wounds to the head and chest, raising concerns of potential war crimes. A forensic doctor has stated that there is evidence of execution-style killings of Palestinian aid workers by Israeli forces, with multiple bullets fired from close range. The United Nations reported that Israeli forces killed 15 people in Gaza last month as they were trying to aid injured civilians, then buried them in a mass grave, although Israel claims 9 of the dead were Palestinian militants. Beyond Gaza, an Israeli military strike near Beirut, Lebanon killed at least 4 people, marking the second such attack in less than a week, and heightening fears of escalating conflict. Turning to Syria, Israeli forces launched air attacks on Damascus and Hama, striking Damascus's Barj neighborhood and military capabilities in Hama and Ham. Syrian state media reported that Israeli strikes hit close to a defense research center in Damascus. Back in Lebanon, an Israeli strike killed a Hezbollah official in Beirut. Domestically, in Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu reversed his decision to appoint a Navy commander as security chief following criticism. Furthermore, a teenager from the West Bank, held in an Israeli prison for 6 months without charges, died after collapsing in unclear circumstances. India is currently facing scrutiny over trade relations, internal policies, and international affairs. Despite being acquitted of all terrorism charges on March 4th, British Sikh activist Yakta Singh Johal remains in solitary confinement. To combat cervical cancer, India is launching a large-scale initiative to train tens of thousands of doctors to administer the HPV vaccine. The Commerce Ministry is downplaying the economic impact of the 26% Trump tariff, indicating a mixed effect. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to visit Thailand and Sri Lanka for the BIMSTEC summit and bilateral meetings. Economists are advising India to seize this period as an opportunity to strengthen its free trade agreement, FTA, with Sri Lanka. India and Nepal have signed 10 memorandums of understanding, worth Nepalese Rs as $625 million for community development projects focused on education, health, and cultural preservation. Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath has highlighted key agreements to be signed during Prime Minister Modi's visit from April 4 to 6, 2025. From space, Sunita Williams has expressed her admiration for India and her anticipation of visiting her father's homeland, showing excitement for the upcoming Axiom mission featuring an Indian national. India's parliament is actively debating a contentious bill proposed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist government aimed at amending laws governing Muslim land endowments. There have been reports of an exchange of fire between Indian and Pakistani armies after an alleged border incursion attempt. Growing concerns are emerging in India regarding the rise of betting apps and fantasy gaming, with fears of addiction and financial exploitation among users. Indian tech workers are also concerned about the potential impact of U.S. immigration policies, specifically regarding H-1B visas. Millions of small investors in India are experiencing financial strain, partly due to uncertainties stemming from Trump's tariff threats. An Indian national was sentenced to 9 months in jail for molesting cabin crew on a Singapore Airlines flight from San Francisco to Singapore. The United States, under the Trump administration, is taking a firm stance on trade with India, citing what it considers unfair tariffs. Donald Trump announced a 26% discounted reciprocal tariff on India, asserting that India's tariffs are at 56%. The White House had previously stated that India imposes a 100% tariff on agricultural goods. Trump has also indicated that India will substantially reduce its tariffs prior to its Liberation Day tariff announcement. Experts anticipate that Trump's tariffs may significantly impact India's agriculture, machinery, pharmaceutical, electrical, and chemical sectors, with fish, meat, and processed seafood being particularly affected in the agricultural sector. PwC suggests the idea framework for Indian companies to navigate U.S. tariff uncertainties and develop a long-term resilience strategy. Chile and India are preparing to commence discussions on a comprehensive trade pact. Furthermore, Codelco has entered into an agreement with Hindustan Copper Ltd, potentially reducing Chile's dependence on the Chinese market. China is strategically positioning itself to capitalize on potential global shifts under a new U.S. administration, aiming to secure advantageous deals while managing emerging risks, particularly in international economic strategy. In trade, China is signaling a willingness to increase imports from India to mend relations after border tensions. Xi Jinping emphasized the shared heritage of both nations as ancient civilizations and major developing countries during the 75th anniversary of bilateral ties, advocating for a cooperative relationship. China's military activities, particularly around Taiwan, are causing concern. The country has conducted multiple military exercises, including simulated strikes on key Taiwanese ports and energy facilities, described as a severe warning and forceful containment against Taiwan independence. These drills involved the aircraft carrier Shandong and focused on the Taiwan Strait, prompting a response from Taiwan in the form of warship deployments. The actions are seen as a message to Washington and a reaction to measures by Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te to counter Chinese influence. The U.S. has criticized these exercises as destabilizing. China is also developing new bridge-forming barges to potentially facilitate large-scale vehicle and troop landings on Taiwan, addressing a significant logistical challenge. Furthermore, China is sending its foreign minister to Russia, a move perceived as related to its foreign policy and relationship with the United States. Economically, Brewed, a Chinese company, has overtaken Tesla as the largest EV manufacturer, achieving over $100 billion in revenue in 2024. To mitigate the impact of U.S. tariffs, Brewed is expanding into emerging markets, such as Brazil, investing approximately $1 billion in a new factory. However, concerns about construction standards have emerged following a building collapse in Bangkok involving a Chinese developer. The collapse of the structure, intended for government offices, occurred after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar and is being investigated for the alleged use of substandard materials to reduce costs, with inferior steel bars found in the debris. In response to the incident, China has urged its firms to comply with local laws. The U.S. has imposed sanctions on Chinese and Hong Kong officials, including Dong Jingwei, director of Beijing's Office for Safeguarding National Security in Hong Kong, for targeting activists abroad. Regarding the Russia-Ukraine war, Germany views U.S. President Trump's efforts to broker a truce as stalled, while China has described the talks as encouraging. The United Kingdom is seeing a surge in gym memberships, reaching a record 11.5 million. This reflects an increase of 1.6 million since 2022, driven largely by Gen Z's preference for social fitness. At the same time, the Royal College of Physicians is calling for government intervention. Doctors are reporting a rise in Victorian-era diseases like scabies. A survey revealed that 89% of doctors are concerned about health inequality. 72% have seen more patients with illnesses linked to poor living conditions, pollution, and transport access. In response to Donald Trump's announcement of 10% import tariffs on UK exports, Keir Starmer is engaging in trade diplomacy with the US. The UK Prime Minister has also criticized the incoming tariffs. A campaign called Smartphone Free Childhood, led by Daisy Greenwell and Joe Rhee, is gaining traction due to worries about extreme online content's impact on children. Centibel, Prince Harry's charity, has experienced a funding drop after his move to the US. Chair Sophie Chandauka cited a significant correlation between the decrease and the Duke of Sussex's departure after controversy stemming from his rift with the royal family. The UK has also sanctioned the Russian-based Eurasia Group for allegedly undermining Moldova's democracy. Furthermore, the UK Foreign Secretary has urged Kosovo to make progress in normalization talks with Serbia, signaling Britain's continued interest in the Western Balkan region. Turning to the United States, President Donald Trump has announced a 10% import tariff on exports from the UK, prompting diplomatic responses. Meanwhile, Moldova is facing alleged interference from the Russian-based Eurasia Group, which has resulted in sanctions from the UK. In the Balkans, Kosovo has been urged by the UK Foreign Secretary to advance normalization talks with Serbia, underscoring the UK's ongoing involvement in the region. Australia saw Kim Williams propose that a coalition government would reassess the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC. Prime Minister Albanese faced disruption from climate protesters during a 2025 election campaign press conference to counter reliance on U.S. trade after tariffs imposed by Donald Trump. Labor introduced a $1 billion zero-interest loan program for Australian export companies. The Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, urged banks to continue prudent lending practices, even though mortgage holders are generally in better financial shape than in 2022. Regarding the environment, Australia marked its hottest 12-month period and warmest March, with the Bureau of Meteorology reporting significantly above average temperatures. Sydney's waterfront suffered damage from high waves, flooding properties, and damaging infrastructure due to a large swell and king tide. In legal news, NSW prosecutors are appealing the non-jail sentence for former police officer Christian White, convicted of manslaughter in the death of 95-year-old Claire Nowland after she was tasered. Former MP Tim Wilson was questioned about a tradie in a Victorian ad who viewers claimed looked like a member of Wilson's Liberal Goldstein campaign. Meanwhile, in the United States, Donald Trump announced plans for reciprocal tariffs on pharmaceuticals. He also criticized Australia's ban on American beef imports, despite the US importing $3 billion of Australian beef. Russia has indicated President Putin is open to talks with Donald Trump, potentially organized swiftly despite recent tensions and attacks on Kharkiv. Trump believes Putin will honor commitments related to a Ukraine deal. Russia is also contemplating lifting the ban on the Taliban's movement as ties develop, though this wouldn't signify formal recognition. Domestically, Russia faces accusations of a crackdown on LGBTQ individuals, including raids on gay nightclubs. Tsvetanka D., a Bulgarian cleaning lady, has been identified as a Russian spy. Regarding the ongoing conflict, Russia stands accused of a war crime for allegedly attacking a military hospital and residential building in Ukraine. Russian forces continued shelling Kharkiv for a second night. The war is now on day 1134. Both Russia and Ukraine accuse each other of attacking energy facilities, possibly breaching a U.S. negotiated moratorium. Beyond Ukraine, Russia has warned against possible U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Russia offered to mediate to prevent what it termed catastrophic outcomes. France's President Emmanuel Macron has reaffirmed the independence of the French judiciary, stressing the importance of its protection following police protection being assigned to a judge involved in Marine Le Pen's sentencing. Government spokeswoman Sophie Premis is anticipating tariffs imposed by former U.S. President Donald Trump to be in the 20-25% range. Marine Le Pen, a prominent far-right leader, has been convicted of embezzlement and is barred from holding public office for 5 years, facing a potential prison sentence of up to 10 years. She has criticized the verdict as politically motivated and plans to appeal. Jordan Bardella, at age 29, is becoming a key figure in the French far-right political landscape. The nation's foreign minister has also issued a warning, suggesting that a military clash seems almost unavoidable if negotiations regarding Iran's nuclear program do not yield a new agreement. European Union leaders are formulating countermeasures following President Trump's tariff announcement, which Ursula von der Leyen called a blow to the global economy. The EU prefers a negotiated solution that has a robust plan ready. Vietnam is preparing to host EU and Chinese leaders to discuss these tariff concerns. The EU is investing billions in Central Asia to diversify supply chains and lessen reliance on China for raw materials. 15 major car manufacturers were fined nearly €600 million by the EU and the UK for fixing car recycling expenses. Finally, Europe is contemplating complex decisions about nuclear deterrence, considering a future where the United States might be less involved. South Korea is on edge as the Constitutional Court prepares to deliver its verdict on President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment. The impeachment, which began in December due to Yoon's declaration of martial law, could lead to his removal from office. In other news, the recent suicide of actress Kim Sae-ron has sparked public interest in her past relationship with actor Kim Soo-hyun, who addressed the media on Monday. Authorities in South Korea are also investigating a man believed to have inadvertently started a wildfire. Turkey is grappling with a complex web of political instability, human rights issues, and regulatory measures. President Erdogan is currently pursuing a consensus-based approach to drafting a new constitution. This effort unfolds against a backdrop of diminishing prospects for lasting peace in the predominantly Kurdish regions of the country. The recent arrest of Istanbul's opposition mayor, a prominent figure seen as a potential rival to Erdogan, ignited widespread demonstrations. These protests have expanded to include a one-day consumer boycott. The Turkish government is facing accusations of employing technological means to suppress these demonstrations, resulting in approximately 2,000 arrests. Concerns are mounting among human rights organizations regarding the conditions within Silivri prison, Turkey's largest high-security facility, which they describe as an internment camp characterized by inhumane treatment. Adding to the regulatory landscape, Turkey has imposed a fine on Meta for its refusal to suspend accounts associated with the protests. Israel is the focus as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits Budapest, Hungary, despite an outstanding International Criminal Court arrest warrant. Hungary, led by Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, has declared it will not enforce the ICC warrant against Netanyahu. The International Criminal Court possesses limited enforcement mechanisms to address Hungary's non-compliance. Canada is bracing for economic headwinds following Prime Minister Carney's announcement of impending 25% tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and automobiles. These tariffs, a response to U.S. President Trump's trade policies, have spurred Canada to plan retaliatory measures against the U.S. The NAL commissioner suggests that the escalating trade tensions between the two nations, fueled by President Trump's tariffs, could have repercussions for the hockey league. Meanwhile, within Canada, the Irving family's vast business empire in St. John, New Brunswick, offers considerable employment but also stirs debate about its financial impact on the city's residents. The United Kingdom is on the cusp of transferring sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. This agreement, already approved by the Donald Trump administration, marks a significant shift in colonial history. Though Mauritius will gain control of the archipelago, the UK will retain a joint US-UK military base on Diego Garcia under a 99-year lease. The Chagos Islands are currently a UK territory, representing the UK's last African colony. Brazil is facing considerable turbulence as former President Jair Bolsonaro prepares to stand trial for allegedly attempting to overturn the 2022 election results and instigate a coup. Furthermore, the government has formally apologized to families of victims of the former military dictatorship. This apology acknowledges the potential discovery of a secret mass grave containing the remains of their relatives, a site that was found 3.5 decades ago. Responding to international trade pressures, the Brazilian Congress has sanctioned legislation intended to neutralize potential tariffs from the United States, similar to those implemented by the Trump administration. The government aims to maintain equitable trade relations between the two nations. Amidst escalating global trade war anxieties, Brazil's President Lula is slated to engage with both Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. Lula is also expected to attend Russia's Victory Day celebrations on May 9. New Zealand is grappling with public anger after an 11-year-old girl was wrongly confined to a psychiatric ward and administered drugs, a case of mistaken identity by police searching for a missing woman. Continuing in New Zealand, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade affirmed that it would sustain its existing level of aid to Kiribati. New Zealand has also voiced apprehension regarding the Cook Islands shipping registry, particularly about possible connections to Russia's shadow fleet, and has proposed expert support to tackle the problem. In sports news from New Zealand, Mitch Hayes' remarkable, undefeated 99 helped propel New Zealand to an 84-run triumph over Pakistan in an one-day international ODI cricket match, sealing a 2-0 series win for the country. Pakistan is currently navigating a series of significant events, beginning with President Asif Ali Zardari's hospitalization in Karachi. He is undergoing medical tests due to a decline in his health. Doctors are closely monitoring his condition. Meanwhile, former Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has been imprisoned since August 2023, has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. In addition, Pakistan is proceeding with its plan to expel an estimated 3 million undocumented Afghans this year. Approximately 845,000 Afghans have already left Pakistan over the last year and a half as part of this initiative. Greece is embarking on a substantial modernization of its armed forces, allocating 27 billion or €25 billion for advanced military technology. In a separate development, Greece will prohibit surrogacy for single men and male same-sex couples. Adding to the nation's challenges, the Greek islands faced a second day of severe storms, with Crete bearing the brunt of intense rainfall. Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, recently concluded a 3-day visit to Greenland. Frederiksen pledged Denmark's continued support. She emphasized Denmark's role as Greenland's closest partner. This visit follows accusations from U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Vance claimed Denmark underinvests in Greenland. The visit also comes amid renewed global interest in the Arctic region. Donald Trump previously expressed interest in purchasing Greenland. That Frederiksen's visit aimed to reinforce Denmark's commitment to Greenland. This commitment is especially important given external pressures regarding Arctic control. Lithuania was the site of a tragic accident during a recent military exercise. A vehicle carrying 4 soldiers sank in a swampy area of the training ground. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda confirmed the discovery of 3 deceased soldiers. The body of the 4th soldier has since been recovered, bringing the grim search to a close. Germany is currently navigating a complex landscape of economic concerns and evolving migration policies. Finance Minister Jörg Kukis anticipates a substantial adverse impact on the German economy because of newly imposed U.S. tariffs. Kukis expressed a desire for partnership-kind negotiations with Washington, aiming to mitigate the potential damage and foster a cooperative resolution. Simultaneously, Interior Minister Nancy Faeser has lauded the departing coalition government's migration strategy as effective. Faeser pointed to an increase in deportations and a corresponding decrease in asylum applications as key indicators of the policy's success. El Salvador's prison system, known for its severe conditions under President Nayib Bukele, faces increased scrutiny. For 3 years, Bukele has publicly showcased the treatment of inmates. The U.S. is reportedly sending individuals removed from the U.S. to these prisons. Al Sharpton is also investigating the case of a Maryland man, allegedly wrongly deported to El Salvador during the Trump administration. The museum was located in a region that saw heavy fighting between the 2 factions. Moving to Eritrea, the government has dismissed claims made by the United States that it is supporting the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, in Ethiopia. Eritrean officials called the allegations baseless and accused the U.S. of meddling in the region's affairs. Relations between the U.S. and Eritrea have been strained for years due to human rights concerns and Eritrea's involvement in regional conflicts. In Sudan, the National Museum in Khartoum has been heavily looted after the Sudanese army retook the area from the Rapid Support Forces. Thousands of irreplaceable artifacts from the Nubian and Kushite kingdoms have disappeared, with images confirming that trucks were seen removing items before the army's arrival. The museum's location put it directly in the path of intense fighting between the warring parties. Europe grapples with interwoven political and security challenges. The specter of US tariffs has ignited debate over responsive actions. Retaliatory measures could target various US goods and services. Strengthening alliances with other nations is also a key strategy. Simultaneously, the persistent influence of far-right movements raises concerns. This influence challenges the perceived moderation of leaders such as Italy's Meloni. Europe remains deeply engaged in the Ukraine war. It balances support for Kyiv with its own security imperatives. Ukraine is actively reshaping its historical narrative at the Battlefield Museum. This transformation started in 2014 after Russia's annexation of Crimea, focuses on decolonizing history. The process includes removing Soviet-era monuments from the museum grounds. Meanwhile, Russia has dismissed a U.S.-proposed peace agreement for Ukraine. This rejection comes even with reports of former US President Donald Trump disagreeing with President Vladimir Putin's actions. Iceland faced renewed volcanic activity near Grindavik, resulting in the evacuation of the Blue Lagoon, a popular tourist destination. This eruption occurred close to the capital, prompting immediate evacuations of surrounding communities based on warnings from the Icelandic Meteorological Office. The primary concerns were volcanic disruptions and the hazardous flow of lava. India is gearing up to begin trade agreement negotiations with Chile, aiming for a more comprehensive economic partnership. Simultaneously, cooperation National del Cobre de Chile, Codelco, the world's top copper producer, has forged an agreement with Hindustan Copper Limited. Chile's partnership with India may lead to less reliance on the Chinese market. To further strengthen ties, India and Chile also plan to deepen their cooperation in Antarctic exploration. Bangladesh is witnessing a dynamic political landscape as parties leverage Ramadan iftar gatherings to discuss potential alliances after the removal of its authoritarian leader. The nation of 175 million is also observing an increase in religious conservatism, a trend that is increasingly influencing the political sphere. Venezuela is seeing legal challenges to President Trump's deportation plan, with lawyers for Venezuelan migrants appealing to maintain its suspension. The lawyers argue that the plan exceeds the wartime authority granted by Congress. They describe the plan as completely at odds with that authority. Meanwhile, Pope Francis in Vatican City maintains his daily routine. He is working at his desk and celebrating Mass in his private chapel. Mexico recently witnessed a surge of excitement as Shakira concluded her 7 sold-out concerts in Mexico City, delivering a powerful message of empowerment to enthusiastic fans. Beyond the entertainment scene, US President Donald Trump's tariff threats are casting a shadow, prompting businesses operating within Mexico to reassess their strategies and potential financial impacts. Adding to the complexities, law enforcement is actively investigating a ranch in northern Mexico, uncovering crucial details connected to the operations of the notorious Jalisco cartel. NATO is navigating a period of potential transformation in its operational framework and strategic priorities. The alliance recently held a summit, emphasizing the importance of expanded industrial partnerships with nations in Asia. Against this backdrop, Secretary of State Marco Rubio's visit to NATO headquarters came at a crucial time, addressing mounting anxieties within Europe regarding potential shifts in US policy should a Trump administration materialize. A central point of discussion was the urgent need for a swift resolution to the conflict in Ukraine, underscoring the alliance's commitment to regional stability. Simultaneously, there are ongoing deliberations regarding Europe's capacity to independently manage the alliance, particularly given its historical dependence on US leadership and control. Niger has officially withdrawn from the Multinational Joint Task Force, MNJTF. The Regional Security Initiative combats armed Islamist groups in the Lake Chad area. The junta announced its decision on state television. They are prioritizing security enhancements for oil sites within Niger. The UK's Chester Zoo has unveiled its expansive new Africa Zone, a £28 million project. This 9-hectare exhibit showcases 57 different species. Rhinos, zebras, and ostriches are among the animals in the exhibit. So Chief Executive Jamie Christen highlighted the contrast between Cheshire's climate and the African savanna. The new zone aims to recreate that African environment. Malaysia was the site of a recent pipeline explosion near Kuala Lumpur that injured 145 individuals. The incident involved a significant gas leak, triggering a fire that engulfed multiple residences and required extensive rescue operations. The affected area, spanning a 290-meter radius around the blast site, is currently under restricted access. Argentina's President Javier Milei marked the anniversary of the country's 1982 Falkland Islands attempt. Desperation is growing in Gaza, where UN bakeries have closed due to Israeli aid restrictions. In nearby Beirut, an Israeli strike killed a Hezbollah official, raising fears of escalation despite ceasefire efforts. Meanwhile, Iran has filed a complaint with the UN, criticizing former President Trump's reckless remarks and cautioning against military action by the US or Israel as the war in Gaza increasingly threatens Jordan. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk reported a cyber attack targeting his Civic Platform party, amid increasing foreign interference concerns. Following a deadly attack on a human, the government of Slovakia has approved a plan to cull 350 bears and declared an emergency. Samoa is grappling with an energy crisis marked by weeks of power outages, prompting Prime Minister Fiami Naomi Mataafa to declare a state of emergency and implement relief measures for affected businesses and households. Italy has tightened its citizenship regulations in response to a surge in applications from descendants of immigrants, now requiring applicants to have an Italian ancestor who was not alive after 1861. Mohammed Rahim Vahidi, a former Taliban ambassador to Spain, was detained by immigration officials at Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia. During a visit to Kosovo, the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary reaffirmed Britain's interest in the Western Balkan region, urging Kosovo and Serbia to advance normalization talks. People displaced by the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, EACOP, project in Uganda are voicing concerns about inadequate compensation and rehousing. 23 more women have come forward with allegations against Zhao Zhenhao, previously convicted in London of raping 10 women in Britain and China. Unable to enter the U.S., many Latin American migrants are returning to their countries, creating a transit challenge for Panama. The Netherlands foreign minister has criticized the U.S. reciprocal tariff plan as unproductive, warning of inflationary pressures and highlighting a semiconductor MOU with India. Alula, Saudi Arabia, known for its desert landscape, is being transformed by hotel construction and public art projects. Paraguay recalled its ambassador to Brazil after the Brazilian Foreign Ministry revealed that the Jair Bolsonaro administration conducted espionage against Paraguay. Bishop Rosario Menezes of the Lay Diocese stated that the canonization of PM James, first saint, is expected to boost the faith of Catholics, as well as Christians. Thousands of protesters in Haiti's capital clashed with police, decrying a surge in gang violence and demanding government protection. Asian markets declined following Trump's tariff increase announcements, with Tokyo's Nikkei 225 index dropping more than 3.4% before partially recovering. Media leaders in Pyongyang and Tonga discussed shared concerns, hoping for a formal meeting to establish a collective media voice in the Pacific. The coal plant in Colstrip, Mont, has been ranked by the Environmental Protection Agency as the worst emitter of harmful particulate matter. Kiribati legislators unanimously passed a first-of-its-kind data protection bill during its first reading in Parliament. The Trump administration seems to support the Angola Rail Line project for mineral access, offering clues to Trump's Africa policy. Death sentences were commuted for 3 Americans over a failed Congo coup ahead of an expected visit from a Trump official. A search is underway for workers trapped under debris in Bangkok. An Indian national was sentenced to 9 months in jail for molesting a cabin crew member on a Singapore Airlines flight. The U.S. has approved a $5.58 billion fighter jet sale to the Philippines. Barcelona beat Atletico to set up a Real Madrid final in Copa del Rey. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.